Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Moyna Bass Fishes. I'm Jim Moyna, professional bass angler from Minnesota. And in this video, we're going to be discussing that gut feeling you have as you're out fishing. That gut feeling that's telling you, hey, I've got to change, I got to do this or I got to do that to start catching fish at a better rate. And that gut feeling, I guess, is often referred to as intuition. I am a believer in that intuition. I believe that gut feeling, it has merit. It has um, it is something we need to be listening to. And when we don't listen to it, we get to the weigh-in at the end of the day, and we're kicking ourselves. We're like, I should have done this. I should have done that. And then we start hearing from guys that did well in the tournament. And sure enough, they were doing this, they were doing that. And our gut told us to do that, but we decided not to do it for some reason. Maybe that reason is because we listened to somebody else who said, hey, you got to go out and throw a spinnerbait on that lake. And so that's because that's what you think you have to do. You do it and you die on it. Maybe you catch a couple of fish. And during the process of that, maybe you take that spinnerbait, you catch a couple of fish in the morning, but it's really slow. You know you're not catching them at the rate you should be for the given lake. And in your stomach, you have this sense that, hey, I should be doing this other pattern. For example, maybe I should be throwing I don't know, whatever, a tube jig. Maybe I should be throwing a tube jig. And something, your body, your mind, your subconscious mind you just have this feeling, a tube jig. And why is that? That's because we've been in a situation before where a tube jig worked. Maybe it's on the same lake, maybe it's on a similar lake, but it's, similar conditions, maybe similar weather patterns, maybe it's a similar time of season where a tube jig worked really good for us. And here we are throwing the spinnerbait pattern because somebody told us to. Meanwhile, our essence of who we are is telling us to throw this tube jig, and we don't for some reason. Not listening to that gut feeling can be a very costly mistake on how much, and has a direct relation as to how many fish you're going to catch for that day. And I've seen that in my own personal fishing. I've seen that where I've refused to listen to my gut feeling. And it's caught, I might just ignore it altogether, or maybe I'll start hearing my gut feeling. I'll start hearing my intuitive side telling me, Jim, you got to get off of throwing this bait and start throwing bait Z. But I don't. Maybe I ignore that all day. Maybe I just ignore for an hour, but that costs me an hour of time that I could be doing something else. And likewise, I have made those switches. And it has paid off. And many times. It's like, I usually don't listen to my gut feeling instantly, but as it starts gnawing on me, the sooner I make that change, the better off I'm going to be. The more glad, more happy I am and realize that, yeah, man, that's a good, I'm glad I did that. Glad I made that change. And maybe it's not just a bait change. Sometimes maybe it's a location change, Maybe you caught them on this northern shoreline in practice, but now the conditions are such that, perhaps that the wind's hammering on there, the shoreline's kind of muddied up, and in that particular lake, for example, that's not a good thing. And your gut's telling you to move, but in your mind, you're telling yourself, well, man, 3 days ago, I really caught him here really good. But your gut's telling you, no, this is not the place to be, because you know that in that particular lake, muddy water's a bad deal. But you stay there because of what happened 3 days ago there. But you got to listen to that intuition. And it usually you are rewarded when you do that. And let's say you do listen to your intuition and it doesn't pay off. That's not necessarily such a bad thing either, because what you were doing prior probably wasn't going to do much better. So it might be just a lateral move listening to your intuition anyways. But bass fishing a lot of times is a game of percentages in a way. So I think if you're not catching much on a certain pattern, and you know you're probably behind the catch rate of everybody else, well, it's not a bad thing to switch it up. It really isn't. Because you're probably either going to stay at that same catch rate or you're going to improve. And oftentimes, if your intuition is telling you to make the switch, and you do, your intuition is basing it on a positive experience in the past, and oftentimes that's a big payoff. And I think percentage-wise, listening to your intuition more often than not is going to pay off than not pay off. So that's basically my point, my essence of this video. Listen to your intuition. Recognize when conditions have changed so that your intuition makes more sense, and it's going to pay off more. It's not going to pay off every time, but overall, percentage-wise, more often than not, it's going to pay off. And worst case scenario, you're probably going to be catching them at the same rate you were beforehand, which was probably not very good. Anyways, so that's my point on intuition. Listen to it, believe in it. I believe in it. Sometimes I think our minds work at a different level than just the conscious, logical thinking type level. There's that underlying intuitive level that, don't ignore it. It'll pay off if you listen to it. Over.